guys, so I've got a bit of a different video for you today because I recently got back a project that I did for school when I was at college for my A-level years. Basically, I don't know if this qualification is everywhere or if it's just in the UK, but you can do this thing when you're in your final year of A-levels, and you can opt to either do a second AS, which is like the qualification, which is a step down from your actual A-levels, or you can take on what's called an extended project or an EPQ. And basically an EPQ is just like a independent learning opportunity. It gives you the chance to produce a project of your choice. You can completely choose the subject and topic and everything, and it's basically independent from your classes at school, so it can't really be anything to do with what you're currently studying. So it's basically just a chance for you to teach yourself something and produce a project on it. The two options that you can do when you take on an EPQ is you can either produce a big essay. I can't remember exactly how many words it has to be, but I'll find out and put it in an annotation to kind of research for and present an argument or a topic that you want to talk about, and then you have to kind of analyse your research and stuff like that. And then you can also, if you don't want to do just one big essay, you can produce an artifact, which obviously has to relate to your research and the topic you're researching, because that obviously makes more sense. And then you'll also produce a shorter essay to go alongside that. So I think the essay for an EPQ with an artifact is 1,000 words, I think, but that could be wrong. I'll check again and put it in annotation if I'm wrong. I did this last academic year, so I can't actually remember all of the details, but yeah, long story short, you produce a project and it's a lot of independent work. I know that a lot of people tend to steer clear of extended projects or EPQs because they are a lot of work and you don't really get any help in terms of the research aspect of it. So yeah, I know a lot of people, when I was at school especially, they opted to just do a second AS. I thought it would be more beneficial just to do the EPQ because it's really highly regarded when you apply for university. They really like it because obviously you take the initiative to go and do your own thing without the help of a teacher, and yeah, it's just, I just thought it was a lot more worth it. And also I was excited because you can pick any subject you want. It doesn't even have to be remotely academic in the sense of, you know, it doesn't have to be on physics or maths or anything like that. Which brings me to the point of the video, which is I actually did my whole project on our perceptions of beauty. And so basically what I did for that is in terms of the research aspect, I basically researched the interpretations of our perceptions of beauty through philosophical arguments, psychological studies, just sociological explanations, and also I used a bit of kind of literary context. So basically the context of women throughout history and all things like that, and looked at kind of famous characters of novels and the femme fatales and that kind of thing. So basically I just looked at the kind of transition of what we see as beauty and why certain qualities are seen as beautiful and why certain things are desired. So I know that seems a little bit frivolous maybe and a little bit shallow, but honestly it was really interesting to look at, and I actually studied philosophy, sociology and English literature, so I was already interested in those kind of subjects, but obviously I'd never studied the actual topic of beauty within those subjects. Does that make sense? I chose to produce an artifact along with an essay, and my artifact I chose to do a big kind of portfolio on beauty icons and kind of analysing their looks and their kind of signature makeup and all things like that, and kind of deciphering what made them so iconic. So, sorry about the ramble there, but I just thought I had to explain what an extended project was, or an EPQ. But yeah, I tweeted because I recently got my artifact back because my college had to keep it until now in case the exam board wanted to review it or whatever, but I've just got it back, so I thought I'd show you it quickly just because I thought you might be interested, and I had so much fun doing it. Like, honestly, EPQ is hard work, like it honestly is. You have to really put the effort in, but I really enjoyed doing mine. Like, I didn't see it as a chore at all. I was like the first person in my class to get mine finished, which sounds a little bit geeky, but I don't really care. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing it, and I'd definitely do it again if I had the opportunity. And so yeah, I'm just going to show you the artifact. And also I'll just quickly say, along with producing your essay and artifact, you also have to complete this massive logbook, which basically documents what you do each week and kind of what research you've done and how you've analysed it and criticised it, and it's a really long process. I can't remember how many pages the logbook was exactly, but it was pretty thick. It was maybe that thick, so a lot of pages, but if you fill it in really well and just keep track of everything, it's quite easy. So yeah, I'll just show you my portfolio. If you're wondering, I did get an A in my extended project, so I'm really pleased because I did really put in the effort. But yeah, basically this is the size of my portfolio, and I'm gonna insert some like close-ups of it just so you can see better. But basically I started with the most iconic person, which obviously had to be Marilyn Monroe. That is just a given. She is just incredible, and I was really happy to be able to research her. I basically researched her makeup style and kind of where her influences came from and why her look became so influential. So basically I talk about how actually her signature makeup look of the kind of cat eye and the red lips wasn't actually originally her signature look. It came from someone called Greta Garbo. I just talk about how Greta Garbo wore her makeup with a really defined crease, similar to how Marilyn was, but Marilyn was a lot softer. Actually, Marilyn herself referred to her eye makeup as Greta Garbo eyes, so she was definitely really influenced by her. And then I just go on to talk about how it's really important in the 1950s for women to accentuate their eyes, because in that time period it was believed to help attract the attention of men, and more importantly, the attention of a possible husband. I just go on to talk about the kind of techniques that she liked to use when applying makeup, or what she got her makeup artist to do, because obviously she did have a makeup artist, I believe, who was called Whitey. Marilyn emphasised her eyes by simple highlighting and contouring. It said that Marilyn would first apply a white stick shadow across her lid, rumoured to be White Lustre by Elizabeth Arden. However, Marilyn Monroe often kept her makeup products top secret. She would then apply a brown eyeshadow in the crease, but it would be blended out rather than leaving it in a sharp line like Greta Garbo. She shaped her crease in a downward angle towards her outer corner, which would produce a highlight on her eyelid directly above her iris, which would result in making her eyes look bigger while also creating a seductive cat eye. I just quickly address her red lip, which is obviously a really signature piece of makeup. It's thought that the result of her really dramatic, bold, voluptuous red lip was actually the result of 5 coats of Guerlain's Rouge Diabolique lipstick. I think that we're all aware that she used to use a bunch of different shades of red to really like make her lips look as full as they possibly could, which is a great technique that is still used a lot today. I use it all the time, so you know, it obviously lives on. In the 1950s, lipsticks tended to have a matte finish. So what Marilyn used to do is dab a bit of Vaseline onto the centre of her bottom lip. That just adds a little bit more fullness. It's a little trick that she used to do. I also hear that she used to apply a really thick layer of Vaseline, I think under her makeup, and it would give her this really soft focused look when she was on camera, obviously in the films, which gave her this really glowing look. And actually, because she did that for so often, she actually grew really fine little hairs, because the Vaseline, I don't know what happened exactly, but it must have reacted with her skin, or her skin got used to it or something. But yeah, that's what it did apparently. I didn't actually write that in the portfolio, but you know, it's something I heard. And so then the next page is just talking about the surgical procedures that she had to make her look as we now know her, as her kind of alter ego of Marilyn Monroe, because obviously her name wasn't actually Marilyn Monroe. The story behind that is when she signed with 20th Century Fox in 1946, she underwent a cosmetic procedure called rhinoplasty, which is basically, to you and me, a nose job, and that was just to slenderise her naturally bulbous nose. Dr. Norman Leaf took over Michael Gurdon's surgery practice after World War II, and he was looking through old medical records and he found evidence of Marilyn's rumoured chin implant. And I actually think that she was the first woman to ever get a chin implant, so that's something new. And basically I just talk about how although her beauty may not have been completely natural, it was still so iconic, and unfortunately, cosmetic surgery plays a huge part in today's society, especially in celebrities. Just show you roughly what it looks like. I know you would have seen the close-ups. That is what that double page looked like. Then, oh sorry, I really hope this video is not going to be really long. I'm going to try and speed up now. So the next page is me basically asking the question, why was her beauty so iconic? And I go on to talk about symmetry, and this is kind of a philosophical argument from Plato. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. He came up with the concept of golden proportions, which is all to do with symmetry of the face. And I have a picture of Marilyn on this page where you can actually line up some kind of mirrored card and see just how symmetrical her face was. It just kind of makes sense that this golden proportion thing works because Marilyn was ridiculously symmetrical. In many psychological and biological studies in this kind of symmetry area, there's been sufficient evidence to suggest that an individual will deem a face that possesses greater levels of symmetry to be more attractive. Scientists believe that there is a rationale behind humans preferring symmetry, as it supposedly infers a greater mate value. They basically believe that symmetry is representative of a strong immune system and fertility. The next page just goes on to talk about 21st century Marilyn in terms of the big film that came out recently, My Week with Marilyn, which I have seen by the way, and I actually didn't really like it. I thought I was going to love it, but I wasn't really a fan. But anyway, that's a different topic. Yeah, and this wasn't really research in terms of Marilyn Monroe as such, but it was just looking at how her presence is still so kind of important even today. And it's just research into that film. It was rumoured that Scarlett Johansson was in to play the role of Marilyn. Kate Hudson, Amy Adams and Michelle Williams were also potential candidates. Obviously we all know that Michelle Williams got the part of playing Marilyn. I also go in to talk about the makeup artist for the My Week with Marilyn production. She obviously noted that Michelle Williams had pretty different features to what Marilyn had. But she decided to avoid using prosthetics in the film because she was well aware that Michelle had to be able to use her entire face to convey a bunch of different emotions, and she didn't want anything to kind of take away from her performance. And she actually goes on to explain how in most of the scenes of the film, Michelle Williams isn't actually wearing any makeup at all. In terms of the makeup of the film, it really wasn't, they didn't really play on it that much. They wanted it to be more kind of natural and show her more vulnerable side. Next page, again, goes on to talking more about, I guess, the kind of selling power of Marilyn's look. Sorry, I have to interject this little thing. Just quickly, you know that I did start going to university. Just to clear it up, I'm not at university anymore. I did leave, but I went there to study marketing. So I thought it would be really good to include some kind of marketing aspects into my portfolio, just because it was kind of linked to the degree I was going to do. So yeah. This is just looking at kind of how advertisers still use Marilyn's look today. There's obviously a Dolce & Gabbana ad using Scarlett Johansson. Then there's also the Christian Dior ad that came out a while ago now, which I absolutely loved, that had all the kind of iconic beauties in it, with a snippet of Marilyn picking up a bottle of J'adore perfume. So that's in there. And then again, I've just got some more features of celebrities that are kind of displaying Marilyn's look. So obviously I've got Rihanna featured in Vogue, I've got Madonna, Lindsay Lohan, Jennifer Lopez, Christina Aguilera, Megan Fox's Marilyn Monroe tattoo, which I have heard that she actually got removed after I did this project, but whatever, she still had it in the first place. Obviously Scarlett Johansson. And then my favourite picture is the one in the middle, which is Lisa Marie Presley, which looks ridiculously like Marilyn Monroe. She was made up to look exactly like her, and a lot of people that I showed this project to actually thought that was Marilyn Monroe in the picture, but it's not, it's Lisa Marie Presley. So, right, sorry, that was a lot of talking and I'm out of breath, but the next icon I did was Twiggy. Obviously I had to do Twiggy because although she was a bit more of a fashion icon than a beauty icon, her makeup was so incredible when she first kind of became famous that I just really wanted to look at it and recreate it for myself, because obviously all of the people I looked at, I did recreate their looks on myself, which you will see in the close-ups. Again, in the 60s, eyes were the main focus of makeup, much like the 50s, but this was due to the release of the film Cleopatra featuring Elizabeth Taylor, and the really kind of defined eyeliner that she had in that film kind of set the tone for the 60s. Obviously Twiggy had that really dramatic lined cut crease, and Actually, the makeup artist Mary Quant developed a range of affordable makeup containing innovative cheek contours and highlighters. She encouraged her customers to apply their eyeliner with a brush in order to achieve a wide-eyed look. The products also contained information leaflets and diagrams for positions of blush shading and highlighting so that customers could achieve the signature Twiggy look. Then I just go on to talk about some key moments in her life/career. So in 1966, she was named the Face of 66 by the Daily Express. In 1967, she appeared on the covers of Vogue, Newsweek, Harper's Bazaar and loads of other magazines. She also had her own magazine published, which was called Her Mod Teen World. Also had a Barbie doll created after her release, which I think is so cool. And also in that year, she had a UK aired documentary all about her and her modelling for Vogue and all things like that. And then in 1968, which I thought was quite interesting, she did a big photo shoot where she posed as icons such as Marilyn Monroe, Ginger Rogers, Greta Garbo and Rita Hayworth, and that was for Queen magazine. So I thought that was quite interesting that although she was her own beauty icon in her own right, she was posing as Marilyn and Greta. That was just, I thought that was kind of ironic and funny. Moving on, the next page is titled Globalization and Inspiration. And this is just looking at one of the photographs that Twiggy did. I think this was pretty early on in her career. I think it was even possibly before she became that famous. And it's just a really, I think everyone will know this picture. It's quite a famous picture where she's got all of her hair like flung back. And I basically just looked at how a bunch of celebrities have kind of copied that iconic image. On this page I talk about how she's universally known as the world's first supermodel, and then I talk about how she actually became famous. By the time she was 17, Twiggy was already one of the most famous faces on the planet, and a photograph of her had actually been put in a time capsule and sent into space. So yeah, pretty crazy by the age of 17. Again, I then go on to talk about kind of her selling power as a model, including kind of the campaigns that she's doing even as a mature model. So obviously I mention how she's still a huge icon in the industry, so she's doing ads for Marks and Spencer's and Olay, and she's also a judge, or was a judge, I'm not sure if she still is, on Britain's Next Top Model. Even when she was younger, she obviously had the Twiggy Barbie doll. They invented a whole range of Twiggy eyelashes. Then again I talk about kind of modern day celebrities which are copying her look. A lot of these pictures are where celebrities have recreated signature kind of poses. So I've got one of Pixie Lott, I have one of Keira Knightley, who is obviously very similar and likened a lot to Twiggy. I have a brief picture of Selena Gomez just because her makeup is very similar to Twiggy's in that picture. And then obviously I had to feature Emma Watson because she is literally like the modern 21st century Twiggy. And obviously this is like the androgyny that's quite big in the modelling world at the moment with the short kind of pixie haircut. It's kind of not feminine and not masculine, so it makes models really, really versatile. So anyway, that is my little brief profile on Twiggy. And then the final icon I did want to do more than 3, but the time it took to research all of this and get the images I wanted to use and then recreate the looks on myself, it was just, I didn't have enough time to also do that and the essay. So I did just do 3 in the end, but I'm really happy with the 3 that I picked. So my final icon is Cindy Crawford, who was kind of around in the 1980s. So I did skip out the 70s, but yeah, I just thought she was just phenomenally gorgeous, and she was quite different to the other 2 that I've done, because Marilyn is quite you know, all American. She's very blonde and blue-eyed, you know, she was quite sassy, but still, I don't know what the word is, because obviously she wasn't innocent, she was a complete sex symbol, but I don't know, I found that Cindy Crawford was a lot more sultry and exotic looking, so it's a completely different spectrum of kind of beauty in terms of comparing her to Marilyn. So obviously, as I said, she's quite exotic looking. She always had a very bronzed look. She was always quite tanned. I found that she often wore a classic brown smoky eye, which again, I copied in my profile, which you will see in a close-up. Notice that all of these icons, so Marilyn, Twiggy and Cindy, they all concentrated a lot on having kind of wide set eyes. That was a really big thing for all of them. Cindy Crawford would use the warmer kind of bronze tones, which would really go with her complexion and her eye colour and obviously her hair colour. And then also for her lips, even she did wear a lot of different colours. She didn't have like one signature look like Marilyn, obviously with the red lip, but she always used to use kind of brown toned colours, so brownie pinks, brownie reds, or just brownie nudes. Obviously maintained her kind of exotic vibe. And then again on the next page I kind of go into the history of it and how her fame all began. She was born in Illinois, and at the age of 16 she was discovered by a newspaper photographer who noticed her working on a cornfield during the summer. She allowed him to photograph her, and the photo gained such positive feedback it convinced Cindy that modelling should be something to pursue. By the age of 17 she was a finalist in Elite Model Management's Look of the Year competition, and then she still went on to graduate as the valedictorian of her class. So brains and beauty, I know it's not fair. After that she gained a scholarship to Northwestern University where she began to study chemical engineering. Shortly after that her modelling career gained more momentum, and she actually ended up pulling herself out of education to go to New York and pursue her modelling career. Since then she's graced over 1,000 magazine covers, including Vogue, Elle, Cosmopolitan. She had a great resemblance to the model Gia Karanji, I hope I said that right, which actually led her being known as Baby Gia throughout her early career. And again I have a picture of Gia in the profile. She's known for a trademark mole, which is just above her lip, which originally was actually removed from many of her early modelling pictures. But actually this is the kind of beauty mark that made her so iconic and noticeable. So obviously it became a huge selling point for her. As her career went on, she appeared in an advertising campaign for chocolates, and the commercial featured her licking off her own mole, which actually sounds kind of gross, but it was obviously a play on the fact that she had that mole. So yeah, that's actually what happened. I have a quote from her which she said to Vogue, and it says, "Whenever they mess with the mole, I cringe." Go on to talk about how her modelling gave her celebrity status, which led to roles in television and film, and also working as a spokesperson. She was the host of House of Style for MTV. She is also known as one of the world's first supermodels, and she was really defined in that pivotal moment when fashion models became stars in their own right. Her beauty really did earn her long-term global contracts with brands such as Revlon and Pepsi. Actually, the makeup artist Sonia Kashuk, who I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, she helped Cindy Crawford co-write Cindy Crawford's Basic Face, which was a kind of instructional makeup book. So people could really create the Cindy Crawford look step by step. And I have another quote from her saying, "Even I don't wake up looking like Cindy Crawford." I'll talk about her influence on the fashion industry, and how her red Versace dress that she wore to the 63rd Academy Awards in 1991 ended up having loads of copies and fakes made, and it was quite an iconic dress for the time. By 2000 she had dethroned Elle Macpherson as the world's best supermodel, having earned over £23 million at that point of her career. And even to date she continues to be a huge selling force in the beauty and fashion world. She was named number 3 on VH1's 40 Hottest Hotties of the 90s, and was actually named one of the 100 hottest women of all time by Men's Health magazine. But what I really liked about Cindy Crawford, which I didn't know before I started looking into this project, was kind of her brains and her business kind of attitude. She was a really clever and determined woman, and I think that's why she became so successful. And she's also hugely charitable. Her younger brother Jeff died of leukemia. Since then she ensured that childhood leukemia was a focal point in all of her charity work. She donated proceeds of her calendars to medical research for the illness, and she's also an honorary board member of the Multiple Melanoma Research Foundation. I hope I said that right. She's also taken part in the Peter's iconic "I'd rather go naked than wear fur" campaign, which again a lot of celebrities have done. And she's also a member of a bunch of different charities. She really makes it her priority in all of her work and kind of functionings and stuff. Then the final quote to end the whole portfolio is actually a quote from Michael Kors, and he said that Cindy changed the perception of the sexy American girl from classic blue-eyed blonde to a more sultry brunette with brains, charm and professionalism to spare. And so yeah, that is my whole portfolio. I really hope this wasn't too rambly for you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed kind of listening to some of the things I found out. I thought you'd be interested just because it is all about kind of those famous beauty icons that we all know about and all love. So yeah, and then the final page in that is just a bibliography where it just includes kind of where I found my research and stuff. So that is everything. I really hope that you managed to see it all in the close-ups that I've inserted. I am aware that there's a little bit of a glare on some of the pictures because this folder has kind of plastic wallets that I could slide the paper into. So what I might do is take pictures of the paper when it's outside of the folder. So take it out of the plastic wallets and then put that on my blog if you want to see kind of more up close detail. And also what I might do if you guys want is I might put a copy of my essay onto my blog because it's only short, it's only about a page and a paragraph. It's really not long at all. So if you would like to see what I actually wrote in terms of the more academic side, let me know, and I'll pop it on my blog for you if I can find it on my computer somewhere. But yeah, I need to stop talking because this video is probably like a million hours long. But I really hope you liked it, and I shall see you soon.